Elena Harper stood outside Bella's bakery, her breath misting in the crisp autumn air as she counted the worn bills in her wallet for the fourth time. $32.17. It would suffice. The wind tugged at her practical braid, loosening strands as she tucked the money back into her frayed purse and summoned a smile for her boys. Behind her, 6-year-old twins Liam and Noah pressed their noses against the bakery's window, their identical hazel eyes wide with anticipation at the display of frosted cupcakes and golden pastries. She had nurtured their excitement all year, saving every spare cent for this one day, their birthday, a chance to create memories that would overshadow the absence that had cast a shadow over their lives. "Remember the plan," Elena said, kneeling to adjust Liam's slightly askew scarf. Her fingers brushed the worn wool. "1 cupcake each, a hot chocolate to share, and if you're both perfect, maybe a biscuit for later." Her voice remained steady, but her chest tightened with the familiar ache of pushing herself too hard. "Can we get the ones with green sprinkles?" Noah asked, bouncing on his toes. His energy contrasted with Liam's quiet observance. Green had been chosen as their birthday color this year, as a small act of defiance against their modest circumstances. "We'll see what they have," Elena replied, smoothing Noah's unruly dark hair. Like his father's, it was stubbornly unwilling to stay neat. The thought of Marcus pierced her unbidden, as it always did on this day. 7 years of birthdays without him. 7 years of being both mother and father, working 2 jobs, days at the community college office, nights at the hospital, to provide what her boys needed, if not what they dreamed of. She pushed the memory aside, anchoring herself in the present. "Ready for your extraordinary birthday adventure?" "Ready!" they chorused, their voices bright with anticipation. Elena took their small hands, her heart swelling at their trust, and reached for the bakery door. A sleek silver Mercedes glided to a stop at the curb, its polished surface mirroring the overcast sky. She barely noticed it. Luxury cars were standard in this upscale neighborhood, a world she and her boys only visited for these rare occasions. Inside, Bella's bakery enveloped them in warmth, the air rich with the scent of vanilla and nutmeg. Despite its modest decor, the place felt like a haven of indulgence compared to the fluorescent-lit discount stores Elena frequented. The counter gleamed with rows of cupcakes, each a tiny masterpiece she could scarcely afford but refused to deny her sons today. "Welcome back, Elena," called Clara, the bakery's owner, her face creasing into a warm smile as she spotted the twins. "Happy birthday to my favorite young gentleman. 7 years old today, isn't it?" "Yes, ma'am," Liam answered politely, while Noah nodded vigorously, his eyes scanning the display. "We're in 2nd grade now. Big boys," Clara said, her voice warm. "Here for your special birthday cupcakes, I bet. With green sprinkles, please," Noah added hopefully. "Green sprinkles are coming right up," and Clara winked at Elena. "Your usual table by the window is free." Elena guided the twins to their spot, a small table overlooking the park across the street, where golden leaves drifted lazily to the ground. This was their tradition, a once-a-year pilgrimage to Bella's, a moment of joy from a life of careful budgeting. The rest of the year was homemade cookies and thrift store clothes, but today was for dreams, however small. "Can we get hot cocoa, too, Mama?" Liam asked, his serious eyes, like Marcus's, sharp and searching, meeting hers. Elena mentally recalculated her budget. Cupcakes at $5 each already claimed a third of her funds. A shared hot cocoa would cost another $4.50. That left just enough for a cookie each and a small tip for Clara, whose kindness never went unnoticed. "One to share," she said with a nod. "Birthday boys deserve something warm and special." The bell above the door chimed, and Elena glanced up instinctively, then quickly away as a tall man in a tailored charcoal suit entered. His confident stride tugged at a buried memory, but she dismissed it. Men like him, cloaked in wealth, no longer belonged in her world. She focused on the twins. Their debate over chocolate versus vanilla cupcakes was a welcome distraction. Yet a prickling sensation crept up her neck, the unmistakable feeling of being watched. She turned slightly, catching the man's profile as he ordered at the counter. Her breath caught. The world tilted. It was Marcus Langston, CEO of Apex Innovations, the man whose family had paid her to vanish 7 years ago when she'd tried to tell him about her pregnancy. The man who'd ignored her calls, letters, and desperate pleas. The father of her children, who'd chosen his empire over them before they were born. Elena's heart pounded as she turned away, praying he hadn't seen her. Why was he here, today of all days? She fought the urge to gather the boys and flee. This was their tradition, their joy. She wouldn't let him steal it. "Mama, you okay?" Liam's perceptive gaze caught her panic. "You look funny." "I'm fine, sweetheart," she lied, forcing a smile and thinking how grown up you both are now. "Seven's practically an adult," Noah declared, oblivious to her turmoil. "Jake in our class is still 6. He's basically a baby." Elena laughed despite herself, grateful for the distraction. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Marcus sit across the bakery, his attention on his phone. If she were lucky, they could finish their celebration and leave before he noticed them. Clara approached with a tray, her smile radiant. 2 birthday cupcakes with extra green sprinkles, 1 hot cocoa with 2 straws, and a little birthday surprise. She set down a plate with 2 star-shaped cookies, each iced with the boys' initials. Elena's eyes stung with gratitude. Clara had done this every year since the twins' 2nd birthday, always adding something extra, without charge. "Clara, you shouldn't have," Elena said, her voice thick. "Nonsense," Clara replied firmly. "It's not every day my favorite customers turn 7. My gift to these fine young men." "Thank you, Miss Clara," the twins chorused, their delight palpable. "Shall we sing?" Clara began a cheerful, "Happy Birthday," drawing other customers into the song. Elena joined in, trying to ignore the weight of Marcus's gaze, now fixed on their table. She focused on her sons' glowing faces while waiting to blow out their candles. "Make a wish," she whispered. The boys exchanged a glance, their silent twin communication, and blew out their candles in unison. "What'd you wish for?" Elena asked, though she dreaded their answer. It was the same every year. Noah glanced at Liam, who nodded. "We wish to meet our dad," Noah said softly. "To see what he's like, even once." Elena's heart twisted. "Oh, my love," she managed, swallowing hard. "Wishes take time sometimes." Across the bakery, Marcus gripped his coffee cup, his knuckles white. Those boys had their eyes, smiles, and faint dimples when they laughed. 7 years. Exactly 9 months after he'd been told Elena had taken money to disappear forever. The woman he'd loved, now watching their children, his children, blow out birthday candles 20 feet away, unaware of the storm brewing in his chest. His carefully constructed world began to crack under the weight of a truth he'd never suspected. Marcus Langston sat frozen at his table in Bella's bakery, his coffee cooling untouched before him. The world he'd built, polished, predictable, and controlled, shattered with every breath he took, each heavy with the weight of a truth he hadn't dared to imagine. Across the room, Elena Harper leaned toward her twin sons, Liam and Noah, her face alight with a love that warmed and pierced him. Those boys, with their dark hair and hazel eyes, were unmistakably his. Their dimples, the way Liam adjusted his scarf with deliberate care, the restless energy in Noah's gestures, they mirrored him in ways that made his chest ache. 7 years, 9 months since he'd been told Elena had taken $1 million to vanish from his life, a lie that now unraveled before his eyes. He gripped the coffee cup tighter, his knuckles whitening as fragments of the past surged forward. Elena's desperate calls, unanswered, her letters unopened, were dismissed as manipulations by his mother, Beatrice Langston. The story he'd believed, that Elena had chosen money over love, had been the foundation of his bitterness, fueling his rise to CEO of Apex Innovations. Now, he saw the truth, watching her count out crumpled bills to pay for 2 cupcakes and a shared hot cocoa. She hadn't taken a cent. She'd raised his sons alone, in a world far removed from his penthouse suites and corporate boardrooms. "Mama, are these really all for us?" Noah's voice, bright with wonder, cut through Marcus's thoughts. The boy's eyes widened at the cupcakes, each crowned with a single flickering candle. "Yes, my love." "Happy birthday," Elena said, her voice catching as she watched their joy unfold over such a simple gift. Marcus's throat tightened. He'd missed this: 6 birthdays, first words, first steps, all stolen by a deception he hadn't questioned. "Sir, are you feeling unwell?" Clara's concerned voice broke his reverie. The bakery owner stood beside his table, her brow furrowed as she followed his gaze to the twins. "Those children," Marcus whispered, unable to look away. "How old are they today?" "The twins." "They turned 7, Clara replied, her tone softening. "Every year their mama saves up to bring them here for cupcakes. Breaks my heart how she stretches every dollar for those boys. 7 years. The math was undeniable, a silent accusation against the lie he'd lived with. Marcus's mind raced, piecing together the timeline. 9 months after Elena's disappearance, after his mother's cold assurance that she'd been paid to leave. He'd believed it too, consumed by ambition and betrayal to dig deeper. Now, the evidence sat 20 feet away, laughing over green sprinkles. He watched as Elena leaned in, helping Liam steady his candle as Noah bounced in his seat, impatient to blow it out. The resemblance was staggering. Liam's thoughtful gaze, Noah's infectious grin. They were his, and he'd known nothing of them. His fingers twitched, itching to act, to cross the room and demand answers. But what would he say? What right did he have to disrupt their joy, to insert himself into a life she'd built without him? Clara lingered, her curiosity piqued. "Do you know them?" I used to know their mother," Marcus said, his voice low. "A long time ago." "Small world," Clara mused, studying him. "Elena's one of the good ones. Raises those boys alone and works 2 jobs, never complain, though it can't be easy." Alone. The word landed like a blow. Marcus's gaze drifted back to Elena, her practical braid contrasting with the flowing hair he'd once run his fingers through. She was thinner now, her face etched with the quiet strength of survival. The stylish dreamer he'd loved had been replaced by a woman who counted every penny, who carried the weight of 2 children on her shoulders. And he'd done nothing to ease that burden, believing she'd chosen wealth over him. The birthday song faded, and the twins' laughter filled the bakery as they dug into their cupcakes, green sprinkles scattering across the table. Elena's smile was fragile, holding back a tide of emotions Marcus could only guess at. Did she know he was here? Had she seen him? He caught her glance, fleeting and guarded, before she looked away. She knew, and she was protecting them, shielding her sons from the man she believed had rejected them. His phone buzzed, a reminder of a board meeting he was meant to attend. Usually, it would have pulled him back to his world of contracts and power plays. Today, it felt irrelevant. He silenced it, his eyes locked on the family he'd never known, the family he'd been robbed of. Anger simmered beneath his shock, not at Elena, but at the betrayal that had orchestrated this separation. His mother's voice echoed in his memory. "She took the money, Marcus. She's gone. Focus on your future." He'd trusted her, and it had cost him everything. What now? He couldn't approach them, not here, not during their celebration. The boys deserved this moment, untainted by his intrusion. But he couldn't leave either, not without answers, not knowing why Elena had never tried harder to reach him. Had she? Doubt crept in, a whisper that maybe she'd fought for him, for them, and he'd been too blind to see it. Clara returned to his table, setting down a coffee he hadn't requested. "Are you sure you're all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Maybe I have," Marcus murmured, his gaze still fixed on the twins. "Do they come here often?" "Just once a year, for their birthday," Clara said. "Been coming since they were 2. Elena makes it special for them, no matter how tight things are." Marcus nodded, his jaw tight. "Thank you, Clara." He slid a $50 bill across the table. "Keep the change." Her eyes widened, but she pocketed the bill with a nod and moved away. Marcus leaned back, his mind a storm of questions. Why hadn't Elena told him? Had she tried? The memory of her calls, dismissed as desperate ploys, now felt like a knife twisting in his gut. He'd been told she'd taken a check for $1 million, a clean break to protect his ascent to power. But watching her now, carefully counting out exact change for the bill, he knew she'd never touched that money. She'd chosen struggle over surrender, pride over payoff. The twins finished their cupcakes, licking frosting from their fingers, and Elena began gathering their things. Marcus's heart raced. If they left now, he might lose them again. He stood, then hesitated, his polished confidence crumbling. What right did he have to confront her, to demand a place in their lives after 7 years of absence? Yet the pull was undeniable, a need to know the truth, see his sons up close, and understand what had been stolen from him. Elena stood, helping Noah into his jacket while Liam carefully tucked their cookies into a napkin. Marcus took a step forward, then stopped. Not today. Not like this. He sank back into his chair, his resolve shifting. He'd find answers, but not by shattering their joy. As they headed for the door, Noah's voice carried back. "Thank you for the best birthday, Mama." The bell chimed as they stepped outside, Elena's silhouette framed briefly against the glass before they vanished into the autumn dusk. Marcus stared after them, his unknown family slipping away. Only then did he pull out his phone, his fingers steady despite the chaos. Jackson said when his head of security answered, "I need you to find someone for me. Immediately." 7 years earlier, Elena Harper stood trembling in the marble foyer of the Langston estate, her hands clasped tightly to steady her nerves. The air was heavy with the scent of polished wood and old money, a world that had always felt alien to her. She'd come to tell Marcus about the pregnancy test she'd taken that morning. 2 pink lines that had shifted her universe. But instead of Marcus, she faced Beatrice Langston, his mother, whose icy gaze seemed to strip her bare. The older woman's manicured nails tapped rhythmically against a mahogany side table, each click a silent judgment. "Marcus isn't available," Beatrice said, her voice smooth as glass but edged with disdain. "But it could be for the best. We need to have a conversation, you and I." Elena insisted I speak with him, one hand instinctively resting on her still flat stomach. "It's important." "I'm sure it is," Beatrice replied, her smile devoid of warmth. "Let me guess, you're in an interesting condition, hoping my son will play the hero. How convenient, just as he's being considered for CEO. Elena's breath caught, shock mingling with indignation. "How did you?" "I wasn't born yesterday," Beatrice cut in. "Girls like you see men like my son as a ticket to a better life. But let me be clear. There will be no hasty marriage, scandal, or Harper girl tainting the Langston legacy." "I love Marcus," Elena said, her voice rising with defiance. "He deserves to know about his child." Beatrice countered that what he deserves is the future he's earned, opening a drawer to retrieve an envelope. She slid it across the table toward Elena. "Inside is a check for $1 million. Take it, disappear, and handle your situation discreetly. In return, you'll never contact my son again." "You think I want your money?" Elena's voice shook with incredulity. "I came to tell Marcus he would be a father and not to blackmail your family. Call it what you like," Beatrice said, her expression hardening. "Refuse, and I'll ensure you regret it. Marcus is about to sign a trust agreement with a morality clause. A scandal like an unplanned pregnancy with a girl from your background would cost him his inheritance and his position." "I'm not just some girl," Elena said, her anger flaring. "I'm finishing my degree. I have plans." Semantics, Beatrice dismissed. "Your presence in his life now would ruin everything he's worked for. Is that what you want? To destroy him because of your carelessness?" Elena felt as if the air had been sucked from the room. "I need to speak to Marcus. Let him decide." "He already has," Beatrice said smoothly. "Why do you think he's not here? He knows about your visit. He asked me to handle it." She gestured to the envelope. This was his idea. A clean break, no messy entanglements. The words landed like a physical blow, each one eroding Elena's resolve. "He knows?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "He sent you to pay me off?" "He's Langston," Beatrice said. "Business comes first. Surely you understood that." Elena stared at the envelope, its pristine surface symbolizing everything she rejected. Without another word, she turned and walked out, her dignity intact but her heart shattered. She tried calling Marcus afterward, her fingers trembling as she dialed his number repeatedly. No answer, Her texts went unread, her letter to his office unanswered. Devastated, she believed Beatrice's lie, that Marcus had chosen his legacy over her and their unborn child. When the ultrasound revealed twins, her resolve hardened. She would raise them alone, without a man who could so callously reject them. Now, 7 years later, Elena walked her sons home from Bella's bakery, their small hands warm in hers as the autumn dusk deepened. The twins chattered about their cupcakes, oblivious to the storm raging in her mind. Seeing Marcus had reopened wounds that she thought had long healed. His shocked expression in the bakery suggested he hadn't known about the twins, but that was impossible. She'd tried to tell him, hadn't she? Doubt crept in, a whisper that perhaps her messages had never reached him. "Mama, can we play at the park?" Noah asked, tugging her hand as they passed the small playground near their apartment. His eyes sparkled with the same restless energy Marcus had once had. Elena checked her watch. 20 minutes before she needed to prepare dinner and head to her hospital shift. "Just for a bit," she agreed. "But then we need to get home so I can prepare for work." The boys raced toward the swings, their laughter a fleeting balm against her rising panic. She sat on a bench, the cold seeping through her thin coat, and let the day's weight settle. Marcus's presence in the bakery had been no coincidence. It felt like fate taunting her. He'd seen the twins, their resemblance undeniable. What would he do? Confront her? Try to claim the children he'd rejected? Or vanish again, retreating to his world of wealth and privilege? "Higher, Mama, watch me go higher." Noah called from the swings, his face alight with joy. "Be careful," she cautioned, pushing her fears aside to focus on her son's happiness. Whatever Marcus's intentions, Liam and Noah were her world. She'd built a life for them, modest but stable, filled with love, if not luxury. No one, not even their father, would threaten that. As the boys played, Elena's mind churned. Had Beatrice intercepted her calls? Has her letter been discarded? The possibility that Marcus hadn't known gnawed at her, but she dismissed it. The more straightforward truth was that he'd prioritized his family's empire. She'd been naive to think their love could bridge their worlds. Elena prepared a quick dinner at their apartment, and the routine ground her. The boys recounted their birthday adventure, their voices overlapping as they described the green sprinkles and Clara's cookies. After tucking them in, she changed into her hospital scrubs, her phone buzzing with a text from Mrs. Callahan, their elderly neighbor who watched the twins during her evening shifts. Boys asleep, birthday excitement wore them out. "Don't worry, see you at midnight." Elena smiled, grateful for Mrs. Callahan's support, a cornerstone of the patchwork life she'd built. As she hurried to the bus stop, the unease from seeing Marcus lingered. Everything felt precarious, as if the careful balance she'd maintained for 7 years was about to shift. Meanwhile, in his penthouse office, Marcus sat surrounded by files his security team had compiled in hours. The dossier on Elena Harper was stark. A modest apartment across town, 2 jobs, unit secretary at St. Mary's Hospital by night, administrative assistant at Westlake Community College by day. Most damning were the birth certificates for Liam and Noah Harper, born 7 years ago today, with no father listed. The dates confirmed what his heart already knew. These were his sons, conceived in the final weeks of his relationship with Elena. Finding any record of a payment to Elena Harper 7 years ago, he instructed Jackson, his head of security, $1 million, from my accounts or my family's. "That requires accessing your mother's records," Jackson said cautiously. "Then do it," Marcus replied, his voice cold. "I want the truth." As Jackson left, Marcus studied a photo of Elena leaving her apartment with the twins, her face weary but resolute. She'd raised his sons alone, without his support, while he'd built an empire on a lie. His phone rang, his mother. He declined the call, not ready for that confrontation. Not until he had all the facts. The truth was emerging, and with it, a fury at the years stolen from him, his sons, and the family they might have been. Elena Harper moved through her morning routine at Westlake Community College with mechanical precision, processing student registration forms as the office hum surrounded her. The exhaustion from her late hospital shift clung to her like a second skin. Her 5 hours of sleep were barely enough to keep her eyes open. Yet, her mind was elsewhere, replaying the moment in Bella's bakery when Marcus Langston's gaze had locked onto hers, his shock as palpable as hers. The memory shivered through her, unraveling the careful control she'd maintained for 7 years. She'd built a life for Liam and Noah, a fragile balance of love and sacrifice, but Marcus's presence threatened to upend it all. Her cubicle, tucked in a corner of the administrative office, was a small island of order. Papers neatly stacked, a photo of the twins pinned to the bulletin board, their smiles a reminder of why she endured. But today, even that anchor felt unsteady. What did Marcus want? Had he recognized the boys? The resemblance was undeniable. Their hazel eyes, the curve of their jaws, Noah's restless energy mirroring Marcus's own.
If he knew they were his, would he try to claim them? Disrupt the life she'd fought so hard to create? "Ms. Harper," a voice interrupted. The department secretary, Ms. Jenkins, stood at her cubicle, her tone laced with excitement. "There's someone here to see you, says it's urgent." Elena's stomach dropped. "Did they give a name?" "Marcus Langston," Ms. Jenkins said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "As in Apex Innovations, Marcus Langston. Says he's an old friend." The words hit like a physical blow. Elena had known this moment might come after yesterday's encounter. But not so soon, not here, in the one place she felt a semblance of control. "I'm in the middle of registration processing," she said weakly, grasping for an excuse. "Could you ask him to—" "He's very insistent," Ms. Jenkins interrupted, clearly thrilled by the presence of a billionaire in their modest office. "He's waiting in the conference room, says he won't leave until he speaks with you." Of course, he wouldn't. Marcus had always been relentless when he wanted something, a trait that had made him a formidable businessman and a dangerous force in her past. "Give me 5 minutes," Elena said, needing time to brace herself. In the small employee restroom, she splashed cold water on her face, staring at her reflection in the chipped mirror. She looked tired, the bone-deep exhaustion from years of juggling 2 jobs and raising twins alone. Her practical clothes, chosen for durability over style, were a far cry from the vibrant outfits she'd worn when she and Marcus were together. Her braid, once a cascade of hair he'd loved to touch, was now necessary to keep her life manageable. She wasn't the same woman he'd known, and he wasn't the same man. "You can do this," she told her reflection. "For the boys, you've faced worse." Steeling herself, Elena walked to the conference room, her steps measured. She opened the door to find Marcus standing at the window, his back to her, gazing out at the community college's modest campus. The sight of him, tall, impeccably dressed, radiating the confidence of a man who controlled empires, stirred anger and unease. He turned at the sound of her entrance, and for a moment they stared, 2 people who had once known each other intimately, now separated by years of pain and secrets. "Elena," he said, her name sounding foreign in his voice after so long. "Thank you for seeing me." "Did I have a choice?" she replied, closing the door but staying near it, a barrier between them. "You've always been persuasive when you want something." "We need to talk," Marcus said, his voice controlled but laced with tension. "After 7 years of silence, now you want to talk?" Elena crossed her arms, a defensive gesture she couldn't suppress. "What could we say to each other?" "You know precisely what," he said, his jaw tightening, a familiar tic betraying his anger. "Those boys in the bakery yesterday are mine, aren't they?" The directness of the question stole her breath. There was no point in denying it. The resemblance was too stark, the timing too precise. "Biologically, yes," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "They're your sons." "Sons I knew nothing about until yesterday," he said, his words clipped, hiding a fury she could sense beneath the surface. "Sons you kept from me for 7 years." "Kept from you?" Elena's voice rose, sharp with disbelief. "I tried to tell you, Marcus. I called, texted, and sent a letter to your office when nothing else worked. You chose not to respond. I never got your messages," he said, taking a step toward her, his eyes intense. "Any of them. My mother intercepted everything. Calls, texts, the letter. She told me you'd taken $1 million to disappear from my life." Elena froze, the words sinking in like stones. "What, $1 million to walk away and never contact you again?" His gaze held hers, searching for truth. "A check that was never cashed. Because you never took it, did you?"
Of course I didn't, Elena said, the memory of that day in the Langston mansion surging back. Your mother offered me money to handle my little problem and disappear. I refused. I would never take money to keep your children from you. But you believed I knew, Marcus said, his voice softening with realization that I was behind the offer. What was I supposed to think? Elena's composure cracked, her voice trembling. Your mother said you sent her to handle it, that you wanted a clean break, no messy entanglements. When you never answered my calls or responded to my letter, I believed her. Understanding dawned in Marcus's eyes, followed by a flash of pain he quickly masked. She lied to both of us. I never knew about the pregnancy, Elena. I never knew I had sons until I saw them yesterday.
The weight of his words settled over her, heavy with the implications of 7 years lost to deception. Why would she do that? Elena asked, though the answer was already forming in her mind. Control, Marcus said bitterly, to preserve the Langston legacy on her terms. I was about to sign a trust agreement with a morality clause. An unexpected pregnancy could have threatened my inheritance and my position at Apex. That's what she told me, Elena said quietly. That I'd ruin everything you'd worked for. So you walked away, Marcus said, his voice tinged with wonder. Raised our sons alone, without taking a penny of Langston's money. They're my children, Elena said. I'd do anything for them, even let them believe their father didn't want them. If that's what you'd chosen. Silence fell, heavy with the years of misunderstanding. They asked about me yesterday, Marcus said finally. I heard them. They wished to meet their father. Elena nodded, her throat tight. Every birthday, it's the same wish. I want to meet them properly, Elena, Marcus said, his voice firm. I want to be part of their lives. I've missed 7 years. I won't miss more. It's not that simple, she said, her resolve hardening. They're children, not assets to acquire. You can't just walk into their lives because you've decided it's time to be a father. They don't know you. They need time. Time I'm prepared to give, Marcus countered, his tone softening, but I want to start now, today. That's not possible, Elena said, frustration rising. I have work until 5, then the boys have karate. My life is carefully balanced, Marcus. I can't disrupt it because you've suddenly decided to acknowledge them. You're right, he said, stepping back, his expression shifting to rare humility. I'm sorry. This is overwhelming, finding out I have sons and have missed so much. What do you suggest? The question caught her off guard. The Marcus she'd known didn't ask for suggestions. He issued commands. Dinner, she said after a moment. Tonight, at our apartment. They'll be comfortable there. I can prepare them and explain who you are, but a short visit and introduction. We take this slowly for their sake. He nodded, accepting her terms. What time? 7, she said. I'll text you the address. I know where you live, he admitted, looking slightly embarrassed. My security team found you after yesterday. I needed answers. Of course, Elena thought. A man like Marcus didn't wait for explanations. 7, she repeated. And Marcus, no presents, no grand gestures. They need to know who you are. I understand, he said, moving toward the door, then pausing. Thank you, Elena, for agreeing to this, for raising them so well, for everything. As he left, Elena sank into a chair, her legs unsteady. The father of her children, the man she'd once loved, was coming to meet his sons. Everything was about to change, and she wasn't sure she was ready. Elena Harper stood in the small living room of her modest apartment, her hands smoothing the worn fabric of her apron, as she prepared to tell her sons a truth she'd never expected to share. The afternoon light filtered through the thrift store curtains, casting soft shadows across the mismatched furniture and the twins' scattered toys. Liam and Noah sat cross-legged on the rug, their school bags still slung over their shoulders, their faces expectant as they sensed the weight of her words. The encounter with Marcus Langston at her workplace hours ago lingered like a storm cloud, his plea to meet his sons both a promise and a threat to the life she'd built. She took a deep breath, her heart pounding as she searched for the right way to unravel 7 years of silence. Boys, she began, sitting on the edge of the couch to face them, remember yesterday at Bella's bakery. The man in the fancy suit who was watching us. Noah nodded, his eyes bright with curiosity. He looked sad, Mama.
Elena's throat tightened. That man's name is Marcus Langston, and he's your father. The silence that followed was heavy, the air thick with the enormity of her words. Liam's eyes widened behind his glasses, while Noah's mouth fell open in shock. Our real dad? Liam asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The one in the pictures? Yes, sweetheart, Elena said, nodding. But I told you he had important work to do from a faraway place. I thought that was true. She paused, choosing her words carefully to shield them from the full pain of the past. Sometimes grown-ups misunderstand each other. Your father didn't know about you until he saw us yesterday. He didn't think he had two wonderful sons.
He didn't know about us? Liam's analytical mind grappled with the idea, his brow furrowing. How could he not know? There was a mix-up, Elena said, her voice gentle but firm. Someone kept the news from him, but now he knows, and he wants to meet you. He's coming for dinner tonight. Tonight? The twins said in unison, their expressions a mix of excitement and apprehension. Yes, Elena said, reaching out to hold their hands. It's okay to feel nervous or confused. This is big news. But no matter what happens, nothing changes between us. You're my whole world, and I love you more than anything. Will he live with us now? Noah asked, his practical question catching Elena off guard. No, honey, she said softly. He has his own home, but he wants to get to know you, to be part of your lives. Is he nice? Liam's voice was soft, vulnerable, revealing a longing that pierced Elena's heart. She hesitated, memories of Marcus's intensity and rare moments of tenderness surfacing. He can be very lovely, she said, and he's smart, like both of you. Does he like robots? Noah asked, his current obsession shining through. I don't know, Elena said with a small smile. You'll have to ask him yourself. Now, we need to get ready. He'll be here at 7. As the boys raced to their shared bedroom to change out of their school clothes, Elena leaned back against the couch, a wave of overwhelm washing over her. How had her carefully constructed life shifted so drastically in a single day? The father of her children, the man she'd loved and lost, was stepping back into their world. With its chipped paint and second-hand furniture, the apartment suddenly felt inadequate, starkly contrasting with Marcus's world of wealth. But this wasn't about impressing him, but creating a safe space for Liam and Noah to meet their father. At precisely 7, the doorbell rang. The twins, who had been watching the clock with growing excitement, jumped up from their game of checkers. Wait here, Elena said gently. Let me talk to him first. She opened the door to find Marcus standing in the hallway, his usual corporate polish replaced by dark jeans and a simple button-down shirt, still expensive but less imposing. In his hands was a small gift bag, his expression a mix of determination and uncertainty. I know you said no presents, he said before she could speak. But it's small, something meaningful, not extravagant. Elena hesitated, then nodded, stepping back to let him enter. They're in the living room. They know who you are. They're excited and nervous. That makes 2 of us, Marcus admitted, his voice low, meant only for her. I've closed billion-dollar deals with less anxiety than I feel right now. The vulnerability in his admission surprised her. Just be yourself, she said. They're good at reading people. Which version of myself? Marcus asked, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. The CEO Beatrice's son, or the man you used to know? The father they deserve, Elena replied. She led him into the living room, where Liam and Noah sat side by side on the couch, their feet dangling above the floor. They looked up as Marcus entered, their hazel eyes, his eyes, widening with cautious curiosity. For a moment, no one spoke, the air charged with unspoken questions. Marcus stared at his sons, seemingly without words, while they studied him equally. Boys, Elena said gently, breaking the silence, this is your father, Marcus Langston. Marcus, these are your sons, Liam and Noah. Marcus moved forward slowly and knelt to their eye level, a gesture that struck Elena as instinctively right. Hello, he said, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. I'm happy to meet you both. I'm Liam, said the more serious twin, adjusting his glasses to mirror Marcus's habits. I'm 6 minutes older. And I'm Noah, added his brother, bouncing slightly. Do you really not know about us this whole time? Marcus didn't flinch from the direct question. No, I didn't, he said honestly. And I'm very sorry about that. If I had known, I would have been here from the start. Mama said someone kept the news from you, Liam said, his analytical mind processing the information. Was it a bad guy? A flicker of pain crossed Marcus's face before he masked it. Someone who thought they were doing the right thing but made a big mistake. For example, when Mrs. Carter sent Timmy to a timeout, was Sam the one who broke the class robot? Noah asked, drawing a connection only a 6-year-old could. Something like that, Marcus said, a small smile breaking through. I brought something for you, not because it's fancy, but because it's important to me. He offered the gift bag, which Noah took eagerly while Liam watched cautiously. Inside was a small leather-bound photo album. As the twins opened it together, Elena stepped closer to see.
The album held photos she'd never seen. Marcus as a boy their age, tinkering with a model rocket. Marcus as a teenager, winning a science fair. Marcus in college, sketching a prototype on a whiteboard. He said, "That's me when I was your age," pointing to the first photo. I loved figuring out how things worked, taking apart gadgets and trying to rebuild them. I do that too, Noah exclaimed, his shyness fading. Mama says I'm not allowed to take apart the toaster though. A reasonable rule, Marcus said, his eyes meeting Elena's briefly with a warmth that caught her off guard. We could build something new together sometime. Can we really? Noah's excitement was infectious. If your mother agrees, Marcus said, respecting her authority in a way she hadn't expected. What about you, Liam? Marcus asked, turning to the quieter twin. Do you like building things too? Liam shook his head. I like math and reading. I'm the best in my class at fractions. That's impressive, Marcus said with genuine admiration. I loved math at your age too. It made the world make sense. Liam nodded, a spark of connection passing between them. As they moved to the dining table for dinner, a simple macaroni and cheese meal, the boys' favorite, Elena watched the tentative bond forming. Marcus's presence, once a threat, now felt like a possibility, fragile but real. The evening unfolded with small moments of discovery, each one a step toward a future none of them could yet define. The small dining table in Elena Harper's apartment was crowded with warmth. The aroma of macaroni and cheese mingling with the nervous energy of an evening that felt like a turning point. Liam and Noah sat across from Marcus Langston, their father, their eyes darting between him and the simple meal Elena had prepared. The twins' chatter filled the room, their questions tumoring over each other as they probed the man who had been a mystery for their entire lives. Marcus answered with a patience Elena hadn't expected. His usual commanding presence softened into something approachable, almost vulnerable. She watched from the kitchen doorway, a dish towel in her hands, her heart caught between hope and caution. Do you have a dog? Noah asked, twirling a forkful of pasta, his enthusiasm barely contained. No, Marcus replied, a hint of a smile on his lips. My building doesn't allow pets, but I always wanted one when I was your age. We want a dog too, Liam said, his tone more measured. But Mama says our apartment is too small and costs a lot for food and vet bills. Very practical considerations, Marcus said, his gaze flicking to Elena with a respect that surprised her. She caught the unspoken offer in his eyes. He could afford a dog, a bigger home, anything they needed, but he didn't voice it, honoring her boundaries. What's your favorite thing to do? Noah pressed, undeterred by the shift in conversation. Do you build robots? I don't build robots, Marcus said, chuckling. But I work with people who do. I run a company that makes technology, things like computers and machines that help people solve problems. Like in science fiction movies? Noah's eyes widened, and his imagination was clearly sparked. A bit less exciting than that, Marcus admitted. But I started like you, taking things apart to see how they worked. Maybe we can try a project together sometime. Elena's chest tightened at the ease of their exchange, as Marcus tailored his answers to their level without condescension. She busied herself clearing plates, the clink of dishes grounding her, as she grappled with the surreal sight of her sons connecting with their father. The anger she'd carried for 7 years, believing Marcus had rejected them, felt less certain now, eroded by his genuine effort to bridge the gap. Yet the past lingered, a shadow she couldn't fully shake. After dinner, the twins led Marcus to their small collection of treasures. Rocks, feathers, a broken toy car Noah swore he'd fix one day.
Marcus knelt beside them, listening intently as they explained each item's significance. Elena lingered nearby, observing the natural rhythm developing between them. Liam's quiet explanations balanced Noah's animated storytelling, and Marcus met each with equal attention, his questions encouraging without overwhelming. His instincts were surprisingly sharp for a man who'd never been around children. "They're amazing, Elena," Marcus said softly, catching her alone in the kitchen as the boys ran to brush their teeth. He stood in the doorway, his expression open in a way she hadn't seen since their early days together. "Their confidence, their curiosity, it's all you. They have your intelligence," Elena said, setting down a plate. "And Noah's got your determination. Nothing stops him once he sets his mind to something." A comfortable silence fell, a moment of connection between two people who'd created these boys but had been strangers for years. "What happens now?" Elena asked, voicing the question that had loomed all evening. "That depends on you," Marcus said, his deference unexpected. "I want to be part of their lives, really part of it, not just visits or money. They need someone they can count on, not grand gestures. They need stability," Elena agreed. "Consistency, not just someone who shows up when it suits them." "I understand," Marcus said, his gaze steady. "I'm ready to rearrange my life for them. Board meetings, business trips, and none of them matter as much as this." The sincerity in his voice disarmed her. The Marcus she'd known had been driven by ambition, shaped by his family's expectations. This Marcus seemed different, softened by the discovery of his sons. "Can you read us our bedtime story?" Noah's voice interrupted, the boy appearing in his rocket ship pajamas, Liam trailing behind. "Mama always reads one chapter," Liam explained, "but maybe tonight you could." Marcus glanced at Elena, seeking permission. When she nodded, his face lit with genuine pleasure. "I'd be honored." "What are we reading?" Liam said. "The Invention of Hugo Cabret," leading the way to their bedroom. "It's about a boy who fixes clocks and lives in a train station." "Sounds fascinating," Marcus said, following them. "Lead the way." Elena stayed in the kitchen, giving them space for this first father-son ritual. Through the open door, she heard Marcus's deep voice bringing the story to life, and the twins' occasional questions were met with patient responses. The sound was comforting and unsettling, a glimpse of what might have been, had Beatrice Langston not intervened. When Marcus emerged 30 minutes later, the boys were asleep, the day's excitement finally overtaking them. He closed their door quietly, his expression thoughtful. "Thank you," he said, meeting Elena's gaze. "For this evening, for raising them so well, for everything." She admitted, "They've wanted to meet you for so long," her voice soft. "They've wondered about you every birthday, Father's Day at school." Marcus said, "I'll never forgive my mother for this," his tone hardening. "She stole 7 years from us. What will you do?" Elena asked, curious despite herself. "Confront her tomorrow," he said, his jaw tightening. "Then I will start restructuring my life to be the father they deserve." "When can I see them again?" he asked as he moved toward the door, reluctant in his posture. "They're free Saturday," Elena said, mentally reviewing their schedule. "Maybe you could take them to the park. Something simple to build a relationship." "Before I make promises or changes," Marcus finished, nodding, "I agree, one step at a time." He hesitated, then added, "I'd like to help financially, Elena. Not to control, but because they're my responsibility too. You shouldn't have to work 2 jobs to make ends meet." Elena stiffened, her independence a hard-won shield. "We've managed for 7 years." "I know," Marcus said, his voice earnest. "This isn't about charity or guilt. It's about sharing the burden and making your life easier so you can pursue your dreams too." The mention of her dreams, her abandoned architectural studies, caught her off guard. "How did you—" "I remember, Elena," he said softly. "Your sketches, your ideas for sustainable housing. You wanted to create spaces for communities, not just wealth." "I didn't finish my degree," she admitted. "There wasn't time with the pregnancy, and then the boys. If resources weren't an issue, what would you do?" he asked, his gaze steady. "I don't know," she said, the question stirring something long buried. "It's been so long since I thought beyond next week's bills." "Think about it," Marcus said gently. "The boys deserve a mother who's fulfilled, not just surviving." After he left, Elena stood in the quiet apartment,
the weight of the evening settling around her. The twins slept peacefully, unaware of the seismic shift in their world. Marcus's return wasn't just about fatherhood. It was reopening a door to a past she'd locked away. As she checked on the boys, their faces soft in the glow of their nightlight, she saw traces of Marcus in their features, his eyes, his stubborn chin. But they had her heart, her resilience. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And perhaps, just perhaps, there was room for her own dreams to stir again, fragile but alive in the shadow of this unexpected reunion. Marcus Langston stood in the opulent sitting room of his mother's estate, the morning light filtering through heavy velvet curtains to illuminate the evidence of her deception spread across the antique coffee table. Avoided check for $1 million. Intercepted emails, a letter from Elena Harper that he'd never received. The artifacts of a betrayal that had stolen 7 years of his life with his sons. Beatrice Langston sat across from him, her regal posture unshaken at 72, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease as she regarded the documents. Marcus's hands clenched at his sides, his usual composure fraying under the weight of his anger. "Where did you get these?" Beatrice asked, her voice steady but with a faint tremor. "Does it matter?" Marcus replied, his tone glacial. "The check you offered Elena, the emails you hid, the letter she sent telling me about my sons, your grandsons, that you ensured I never saw." Beatrice's composure slipped, her lips tightening at the mention of grandsons. "You've seen them, then," Marcus said. His voice was low and dangerous for the first time yesterday. 7 years after they were born, because of you. "I did what was necessary," Beatrice said, straightening, her aristocratic bearing a shield honed over decades. "You were about to take over Apex Innovations. The board was watching for any hint of scandal. A pregnancy with that girl would have derailed everything." "That girl has a name," Marcus said, his voice cutting. "Elena, the mother of my children. And they're not just any children. They're brilliant, thoughtful boys who've grown up without their father because of your lies." "You weren't ready for fatherhood," Beatrice insisted. "Your career, your future. That wasn't your decision," Marcus interrupted, his voice rising, a rare break in his control. "You had no right to intercept her messages, to lie to her about me wanting her gone, to lie to me about her taking money." Beatrice said, "I did what I thought was best for you," her tone unwavering for the Langston legacy. "The Langston legacy," Marcus said, with a bitter laugh escaping him. "You know what's ironic, Mother? Those boys you tried to erase are more Langston than anyone I've met. Liam has the analytical mind that built this company. Noah has the curiosity that turned it into an empire. They're the legacy, whether you accept it or not." Beatrice fell silent, her expression unreadable. "What do you intend to do?" she asked after a long pause. "About them?" Marcus said. "I'll be their father, make up for 7 years of absence, whether they're in a mansion or a modest apartment. About you? That depends on whether you accept them and Elena as part of my life and our family." Beatrice said, "You can't be serious about rekindling things with her," her voice sharp. "She's not from our world, Marcus. She doesn't understand our responsibilities." "She understands responsibility better than anyone," Marcus countered. "She's raised our sons alone, working 2 jobs, never taking your money, never letting them feel bitter about their absent father. She's given them love and strength that your wealth could never buy." Beatrice's silence was heavy, her gaze fixed on the documents. "I'll give you time to think," Marcus said, gathering the papers. "But know this, those boys are my priority now. Not the company, not the Langston name, not your social standing." "What are they like?" Beatrice asked as he turned to leave, her voice softer, almost vulnerable. Marcus paused, a flicker of hope stirring. "Liam is thoughtful, always observing before he speaks. He loves math and asks questions that could stump a professor. Noah is all energy, always in motion, taking things apart to understand them. Despite growing up without half their family, they're kind, resilient, and well-adjusted. They sound remarkable," Beatrice said, her tone quiet. "They are," Marcus said, his voice hardening. "No thanks to us. You have a choice, Mother. Be their grandmother, value them for who they are, not what they represent, or stay the woman who tried to erase them.
I won't allow anything in between." He left, the heavy door closing with a thud that echoed his resolve. In his car, Marcus took a moment to steady himself. The confrontation had been draining but necessary, severing the lies that had shaped his life. Now, his focus shifted to the future, to Liam and Noah, to building a relationship with them, to making amends with Elena. His phone buzzed with a calendar reminder for a board meeting, but he dismissed it. His corporate empire could wait, his sons could not. Let the twins and Elena as he drove to his office. Her resilience, quiet strength, and unwavering dedication to their children stirred a mix of admiration and something deeper, a feeling he'd thought buried. 7 years ago, he'd believed she'd abandoned him for money. Knowing she'd walked away with nothing rather than accept a bribe, he saw her character in sharp relief. The life she'd built, modest but rich with love, challenged everything he'd been raised to value. Marcus met with his corporate attorneys at his office, his mind already restructuring his life. Adjusting his schedule to be present for his sons wouldn't be simple. As CEO, his time was booked for investor meetings, international conferences, and product launches months in advance. But none of it compared to his missed moments, first words, first steps, 6 birthdays. He'd find a way, whatever it took. Jackson, his head of security, entered with an update. "Sir, there is no record of a payment to Elena Harper from your accounts. But a check for $1 million from your mother's account was made out to Elena. It was never cashed." Voided after 90 days. Marcus's jaw tightened, the final piece of the puzzle clicking into place. "And the emails? The letter? Intercepted by your former assistant, Margaret Wells, on your mother's orders," Jackson said. "The emails never reached you. The letter was found in your mother's private files." It explicitly mentioned the pregnancy. The fury Marcus had held in check surged, threatening to spill over. His mother systematically hid Elena's attempts to reach him, then lied about taking money. She'd robbed him of his sons, robbed them of their father, all to protect a legacy that now felt hollow. "Thank you, Jackson," he said, his voice controlled. "I'll handle it from here." Alone, Marcus stared at the twins' birth certificates, Liam James Harper and Noah Thomas Harper. The middle name James, a Langston family name, was a coincidence cut deep. Elena couldn't have known its significance. Tomorrow, he'd see her again, begin the slow process of becoming part of his sons' lives. But tonight, he needed to process the magnitude of what had been taken, and what he now had to make right. As he left the office, the city lights stretching below his penthouse window, Marcus felt a clarity he hadn't known in years. The path forward wasn't just about fatherhood. It was about rebuilding trust with Elena, about proving he could be the man she and their sons deserved. The weight of the past was heavy, but the possibility of a fragile and uncertain future gave him purpose. For the first time in 7 years, Marcus Langston felt like he was coming home. Marcus Langston stood in the opulent sitting room of his mother's estate, the morning light filtering through heavy velvet curtains to illuminate the evidence of her deception spread across the antique coffee table. A voided check for $1 million, intercepted emails, a letter from Elena Harper that he'd never received, the artifacts of a betrayal that had stolen 7 years of his life with his sons. Beatrice Langston sat across from him, her regal posture unshaken at 72, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease as she regarded the documents. Marcus's hands clenched at his sides, his usual composure fraying under the weight of his anger. "Where did you get these?" Beatrice asked, her voice steady but with a faint tremor. "Does it matter?" Marcus replied, his tone glacial. "The check you offered Elena, the emails you hid, the letter she sent telling me about my sons, your grandsons, that you ensured I never saw." Beatrice's composure slipped, her lips tightening at the mention of grandsons. "You've seen them then?" Marcus said for the first time yesterday, 7 years after they were born because of you. "I did what was necessary," Beatrice said, straightening, her aristocratic bearing a shield honed over decades. "You were about to take over Apex Innovations. The board was watching for any hint of scandal. A pregnancy with that girl would have derailed everything." "That girl has a name," Marcus said, his voice cutting. "Elena,
the mother of my children. And they're not just any children. They're brilliant, thoughtful boys who've grown up without their father because of your lies. You weren't ready for fatherhood, Beatrice insisted. Your career, your future, that wasn't your decision, Marcus interrupted, his voice rising, a rare break in his control. You had no right to intercept her messages, to lie to her about me wanting her gone, to lie to me about her taking money. Beatrice said, I did what I thought was best for you, her tone unwavering for the Langston legacy. The Langston legacy, Marcus said, with a bitter laugh escaping him. You know what's ironic, Mother? Those boys you tried to erase are more Langston than anyone I've met. Liam has the analytical mind that built this company. Noah has the curiosity that turned it into an empire. They're the legacy, whether you accept it or not. Beatrice fell silent, her expression unreadable. What do you intend to do? She asked after a long pause. About them, Marcus said. I'll be their father, make up for 7 years of absence, whether they're in a mansion or a modest apartment. About you? That depends on whether you accept them and Elena as part of my life and our family. Beatrice said, you can't be serious about rekindling things with her, her voice sharp. She's not from our world, Marcus. She doesn't understand our responsibilities. She understands responsibility better than anyone, Marcus countered. She's raised our sons alone, working 2 jobs, never taking your money, never letting them feel bitter about their absent father. She's given them love and strength that your wealth could never buy. Beatrice's silence was heavy, her gaze fixed on the documents. I'll give you time to think, Marcus said, gathering the papers. But know this, those boys are my priority now, not the company, not the Langston name, not your social standing. What are they like? Beatrice asked as he turned to leave, her voice softer, almost vulnerable. Marcus paused, a flicker of hope stirring. Liam is thoughtful, always observing before he speaks. He loves math and asks questions that could stump a professor. Noah is all energy, always in motion, taking things apart to understand them. Despite growing up without half their family, they're kind, resilient, and well-adjusted. They sound remarkable, Beatrice said, her tone quiet. They are, Marcus said, his voice hardening. No thanks to us. You have a choice, Mother. Be their grandmother. Value them for who they are, not what they represent. Or stay the woman who tried to erase them. I won't allow anything in between. He left, the heavy door closing with a thud that echoed his resolve. In his car, Marcus took a moment to steady himself. The confrontation had been draining but necessary, severing the lies that had shaped his life. Now, his focus shifted to the future, to Liam and Noah, to building a relationship with them, to making amends with Elena. His phone buzzed with a calendar reminder for a board meeting, but he dismissed it. His corporate empire could wait, his sons could not. Marcus's thoughts drifted to the twins and Elena as he drove to his office. Her resilience, quiet strength, and unwavering dedication to their children stirred a mix of admiration and something deeper, a feeling he'd thought buried. 7 years ago, he'd believed she'd abandoned him for money. Knowing she'd walked away with nothing rather than accept a bribe, he saw her character in sharp relief. The life she'd built, modest but rich with love, challenged everything he'd been raised to value. Marcus met with his corporate attorneys at his office, his mind already restructuring his life. Adjusting his schedule to be present for his sons wouldn't be simple. As CEO, his time was booked for investor meetings, international conferences, and product launches months in advance. But none of it compared to his missed moments. First words, first steps, 6 birthdays. He'd find a way, whatever it took. Jackson, his head of security, entered with an update. Sir, he said there is no record of a payment to Elena Harper from your accounts. But there was a check for $1 million from your mother's account, made out to Elena. It was never cashed, voided after 90 days. Marcus's jaw tightened, the final piece of the puzzle clicking into place. And the emails, the letter? Intercepted by your former assistant, Margaret Wells, on your mother's orders, Jackson said. The emails never reached you. The letter was found in your mother's private files. It explicitly mentioned the pregnancy. The fury Marcus had held in check surged, threatening to spill over. His mother had systematically hidden Elena's attempts to reach him. then lied about her taking money. She'd robbed him of his sons, robbed them of their father, all to protect a legacy that now felt hollow. "Thank you, Jackson," he said, his voice controlled. "I'll handle it from here." Alone, Marcus stared at the twins' birth certificates. Liam James Harper and Noah Thomas Harper. The middle name James, a Langston family name, was a coincidence that cut deep. Elena couldn't have known its significance. Tomorrow, he'd see her again and begin the slow process of becoming part of his sons' lives. But tonight, he needed to process the magnitude of what had been taken and what he now had to make right. As he left the office, the city lights stretching below his penthouse window, Marcus felt a clarity he hadn't known in years. The path forward wasn't just about fatherhood. It was about rebuilding trust with Elena, about proving he could be the man she and their sons deserved. The weight of the past was heavy, but the possibility of a future, fragile and uncertain, gave him purpose. For the first time in 7 years, Marcus Langston felt like he was coming home. Elena Harper's heart raced as she gripped the steering wheel, the city's lights blurring past as she sped toward Memorial Hospital. The phone call from Marcus Langston, his voice taut with controlled urgency, replayed in her mind. "Don't panic, but we're at the hospital. Noah had an accident at the science center." Her world had narrowed to a pinpoint of fear, her thoughts spiraling with worst-case scenarios, despite Marcus's assurance that Noah would be okay. "Broken arm," he'd said. "He's in pain but stable." The words did little to calm the terror clawing at her chest. 20 minutes felt like an eternity, each red light a cruel delay as she navigated the familiar streets to reach her son. At the hospital's pediatric emergency department, Elena found Marcus and Liam in the waiting area, their faces etched with matching distress. Liam's eyes were red-rimmed, his small frame trembling as he ran to her. "Mom, Noah broke his arm," he said, his voice breaking. There was a loud snap and he screamed, and there was blood. "It's okay, sweetheart," Elena soothed, kneeling to hug him tightly, her gaze lifting to Marcus over Liam's head. "Where is he now?" "Still in X-ray," Marcus said, his usual confidence absent, replaced by a raw vulnerability she hadn't seen before. "The doctor says it's a clean break, but they're checking for damage to the growth plate." Elena nodded, her mind racing as she processed the information. "How's Noah holding up?" "Scared but trying to be brave," Marcus said, running a hand through his hair, a gesture that betrayed his guilt. "I'm so sorry, Elena. I was right there, helping Liam with a pulley exhibit, and I didn't see Noah climb to the top of the structure." "Kids fall, Marcus," Elena said, her voice steady despite her fear. "You can't watch them every second." She reached out, squeezing his arm in a gesture of reassurance that surprised them both. "These things happen." "I should have been more careful," Marcus said, his voice thick with self-reproach. "Some father I'm turning out to be, a human one," Elena corrected gently. "Welcome to parenthood, where you can't prevent every accident, no matter how vigilant you are." Before Marcus could respond, a nurse appeared, guiding them to a treatment room where Noah sat on a bed, his face pale but his eyes brightening at the sight of his mother. "Mom," he said, holding up his obviously broken arm with a mix of pain and pride. "The doctor says I might need surgery, like a real science experiment." "Oh, my brave boy," Elena said, carefully hugging him, avoiding his injured arm. "Let's hope it's just a cast, but if you need surgery, you'll have the best doctors." As the hours unfolded, the orthopedic consultant confirmed a clean break, and no surgery was required. The casting process was a blur of medical jargon and Noah's determined attempts to stay cheerful, asking the doctor if he could get a green cast to match his birthday sprinkles. Elena and Marcus worked in seamless tandem, Marcus asking detailed questions about recovery and growth plates, his analytical mind cutting through the haze of medical terms, while Elena provided the comfort Noah craved, her presence a steady anchor. Liam hovered nearby, his worry easing as he saw his twins' spirits lift. By the time they left the hospital, Noah, sporting a bright green cast he couldn't wait to show his classmates, Elena felt a shift in her perception of Marcus. His vulnerability during the crisis, his willingness to admit his limitations, his partnership without ego, all revealed a man far removed from the one she'd believed had abandoned them. "Would you mind if we all stayed at my place tonight?"
Marcus asked as they reached his SUV, its spacious interior better suited for Noah's comfort than Elena's cramped apartment stairs. "The guest room's ready for you, and Noah might be more comfortable there." The suggestion was practical, focused on Noah's needs, and was not an attempt to overstep. "It makes sense," Elena agreed, helping Noah into the back seat, where Liam was already arranging pillows for his brother. "I'll need to grab some things from home first." At Marcus's penthouse, the contrast to Elena's modest apartment was stark but not ostentatious. The space was luxurious yet subdued, with personal touches that surprised her. The twins' room, already prepared, held practical furnishings tailored to their interests: books on robotics for Noah, star charts for Liam. A guest room for Elena had a vase of sunflowers, her favorite, a detail from their past that stirred something in her chest. "You've been planning this," she said, as Marcus showed her around while the boys settled in, their excited chatter echoing down the hall. "Since I met them," Marcus admitted, "I wanted them to have a place here, to know they belong in my life, not just as visitors, but as a permanent part." The sincerity in his voice touched a guarded part of her. This wasn't the calculating CEO making strategic moves, but a father carving out space for his children. After tucking the boys in, Noah medicated and comfortable, Liam curled protectively beside him. Elena joined Marcus in his living room, accepting a glass of wine he offered. The day's stress had left them both drained but oddly connected, partners in the crucible of parenthood. "Thank you," Marcus said, sitting across from her, his voice quiet, "for not blaming me, for knowing exactly what they needed today." "That's what parents do," Elena said simply. "Support each other for the kids' sake." "Is that all we're doing?" Marcus asked, his question gentle but direct. "Supporting each other for the kids?" Elena studied him over her wine glass, the day's events having stripped away some of her defenses. "I don't know, Marcus. 6 months ago I'd have said yes, co-parents with a complicated past. But now, you're not the man I thought abandoned us, because that man never existed. And you're not the man I loved before, either. You're someone new, someone I'm still learning." "I feel the same about you," Marcus said. "The Elena I'm seeing now is stronger, shaped by her own choices, not others' expectations." "Motherhood clarifies who you are. It does that," Elena said with a small smile. "Nothing focuses you like being responsible for 2 small humans. So does losing what matters and rebuilding," Marcus said, his expression open. "When I thought you'd taken the money, it broke something in me, made me question love, connection." But these past weeks with Liam and Noah, watching Noah tinker and hearing Liam's questions about the universe, have shown me what's real. It's not wealth or power. It's choosing each other, day after day, through broken arms and everyday moments. His words hung between them, raw and unguarded. "I choose you, Elena," he said, leaning forward, "not just as their mother, but as the woman I want to build a future with. If you'll have me." The declaration was a bridge between their painful past and a fragile present. "I can't answer that tonight," Elena said, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling within. "Not after today, not with so much uncertainty. But I'm open to the possibility in a way I never thought I'd be." Marcus nodded, accepting her caution. "That's all I ask. The chance to show you who I am now, who we could be." As Elena headed to the guest room, she paused at the boys' doorway, watching them sleep. Noah's cast rested on a pillow, Liam's arm thrown protectively across his twin. They'd wished for their father every birthday, and now he was here, committed to being the parent they deserved. Perhaps, in time, he could also be the partner she'd once believed in, a possibility that felt both daunting and hopeful, like the first light of a new dawn. Elena Harper stood on the balcony of Marcus Langston's penthouse, the city lights sprawling below like a constellation of possibilities. The evening air carried the chill of early winter, and she wrapped her cardigan tighter, the weight of the past weeks settling around her. Inside, Liam and Noah slept soundly. Noah's green cast a vivid reminder of the accident that had brought them here, to Marcus's home, in a moment of crisis that had unexpectedly deepened their connection. The twins' half-birthday celebration earlier that day, a joyful chaos of cake decorating and laughter, had felt like a milestone, a tentative weaving of their lives into something more cohesive.
Marcus joined her, offering a mug of tea instead of wine, a small shift that spoke of a growing intimacy rooted in shared moments rather than grand gestures. "Happy half-birthday to us too," Marcus said, handing her the mug, his voice warm with reflection. 6 months after that day at Bella's bakery, everything changed. For the better, Elena acknowledged, sipping the tea, its warmth grounding her. However, I wouldn't have believed it then. "Nor I," Marcus said, his smile tinged with regret. "I was so angry at my mother, at you, at the lost time. But now I wonder if we needed those years apart to become the people who could make this work. The people who could raise those incredible boys," Elena added, her gaze drifting to the city horizon. "And maybe choose each other for the right reasons." "Have you?" Marcus asked, his voice gentle but direct. "Chosen me? Chosen us?" Elena set down her mug, turning to face him fully. The question hung between them, heavy with the weight of their history and the promise of something new. "I have," she said, her voice steady despite the vulnerability it carried. "Not just because of the boys, though they're part of it. Not because of practicality or circumstance, but because the man you've become is someone I can trust, someone I can build a future with, someone I love." The words bridged the final gap between their painful past and their hopeful present. Marcus reached for her, drawing her into an embrace that felt like coming home after a long journey. "I love you," he whispered against her hair. "I think I always have, even when I didn't understand what that meant. Even when I thought I'd lost you forever." Their lips met in a kiss that held promise rather than farewell, a quiet affirmation of a bond rebuilt on truth and forgiveness. Elena leaned into it, her heart unburdened by the anger she'd carried for 7 years. The cold contract that had once defined their relationship, Beatrice Langston's attempt to erase her, had been replaced by something warmer, more resilient. As they pulled apart, Elena felt the pieces of their story falling into place, a tapestry woven from choice rather than obligation. Inside, the twins' half-birthday cake sat on the counter, a whimsical creation shaped like a rocket for Liam and a robot for Noah, its frosting smudged from their enthusiastic decorating. The day had been a blend of their worlds, Elena's homemade traditions and Marcus's resources, his penthouse kitchen a far cry from her cramped apartment, but filled with the same love. The boys had laughed as Marcus fumbled with piping bags, his once immaculate sweater streaked with blue frosting, his patience unwavering as he followed their instructions. "Mom, come help with the stars," Liam had called, waving her over to the counter. "Dad's making the robot arms all wrong." "I'm following the design exactly," Marcus had protested, his mock offense drawing giggles from the twins. "Your vision is just too advanced for my skills. You're a businessman, not an artist," Noah had said matter-of-factly, patting Marcus's arm with frosting-covered fingers. "But you're getting better." High praise, Marcus had laughed, catching Elena's eye with a warmth that made her heart flutter. She joined them, her hands steady as she guided the piping bag, the 4 of them working in sync to create something uniquely theirs. It wasn't the family she'd imagined 7 years ago, alone and pregnant, nor the one she'd resigned herself to after walking away from Beatrice's offer. It was better, built on mutual respect, shared effort, and a love that had endured despite the odds. As they stood on the balcony, Marcus's arm still around her, Elena reflected on the months since their reunion. Marcus had become a constant in the twins' lives, attending their school events, cheering at Noah's robotics club, and helping Liam with complex math puzzles. His gifts remained thoughtful: books, project kits, experiences, never overshadowing Elena's authority. When disagreements arose, they navigated them together, their discussions private but united in front of the boys. Financial support came quietly: scholarships for the twins' school, repairs to her apartment, a reliable car to replace her broken one. Elena accepted these with cautious gratitude, drawing the line at personal gifts to maintain her independence. "I spoke with Westlake again," Marcus said, breaking the silence. "They're holding a spot for you in the architectural program. You could start in January."
Elena's breath caught. "You're persistent," she said, half smiling. "Only when it matters," he said, his tone earnest. "You've given everything to the boys. You deserve to reclaim your dreams." The idea of returning to her architectural studies, once a distant hope, now felt tantalizingly close. "I'm considering it," she said, "but it's a big step, balancing school, work, and the boys." "I'll be there," Marcus said. "I can take the boys in the afternoons when you have classes." Mrs. Callahan agreed to help with evenings. "We'll make it work." His willingness to share the load, to support without controlling, softened the walls around her heart. "I'll let you know soon," she said, the possibility taking root. The twins' voices drifted from inside, a muffled giggle suggesting they weren't as asleep as they'd seemed. Elena smiled, stepping back into the warmth of the penthouse, Marcus following. They found Liam and Noah sprawled on the living room floor, a board game half set up, their eyes bright despite the late hour. "Can't sleep?" Elena asked, sitting beside them. "Too excited," Noah said, holding up a game piece shaped like a rocket.
"Can Dad play with us?" "If he's up for it," Elena said, glancing at Marcus with a playful challenge. "Absolutely," Marcus said, settling onto the rug. "But I warn you, I'm ruthless at board games." "No way you'll beat us," Noah declared, while Liam carefully arranged the pieces, his analytical mind already strategizing. As they played, Elena watched the easy dynamic between Marcus and the twins. His laughter mingled with theirs, his competitive streak tempered by encouragement. This was the father they'd wished for every birthday, the one they'd dreamed of meeting. And he was here, not just present but committed, reshaping his life to fit theirs. Later, after the game ended and the boys were tucked back into bed, Elena and Marcus returned to the balcony. The city was quieter now, the stars faintly visible above the urban glow. "This feels right," Elena said, her voice soft, not just for them, but for us. "It does," Marcus agreed, his hand finding hers. "We're building something real, Elena. Not just a family for the boys, but a future for all of us." She squeezed his hand, the gesture a silent promise. The pain of their past, Beatrice's lies, the years of separation, hadn't vanished, but it no longer defined them. They were weaving a new tapestry, one thread at a time, from the ashes of misunderstanding. As they stood together, the cold night air no longer felt daunting but invigorating, a reminder that even in the darkest seasons, new beginnings were possible. Elena Harper sat in the crowded school auditorium, the hum of parents and students filling the air as the twins' winter showcase began. Liam and Noah had been preparing for weeks, their excitement palpable as they readied their projects. Liam's intricate model of a solar system, complete with hand-painted planets, and Noah's working prototype of a wind turbine, cobbled together with spare parts and boundless enthusiasm. Elena's heart swelled with pride, but a quiet unease lingered, stirred by the presence of Marcus Langston beside her. His tall frame stood out among the other parents, and his tailored coat was a subtle reminder of the world he inhabited, which was so different from hers. Yet, his focus was entirely on the stage, his anticipation mirroring hers as they waited for their sons to shine. "I was starting to worry," Marcus said as she settled into the seat he'd reserved in the front row. "The showcase starts in 5 minutes. The bus was late," Elena explained, catching her breath from the rush across town. "Did you see the boys backstage?" "Briefly," Marcus said, his smile warm. "Liam's as calm as ever, but Noah's practically vibrating with energy." Elena nodded, a smile tugging at her lips, despite the complex emotions swirling within. The past months had reshaped their lives, Marcus's steady presence weaving into the fabric of their days. He'd become a fixture at school events, from math competitions to robotics fairs, his corporate schedule bending to accommodate the twins. Yet, each moment of shared pride, like tonight, highlighted the years they'd lost to Beatrice Langston's deception, a wound that hadn't fully healed. As the lights dimmed and the first student took the stage, Elena felt Marcus beside her, familiar yet charged with unspoken questions. When Liam stepped up, his voice was steady as he explained the orbital paths of his planets. Marcus's hand briefly covered hers on the armrest, a spontaneous gesture of shared awe. "He's remarkable," Marcus whispered, his eyes fixed on their son, so precise, so focused. Like his father, Elena said, the words slipped out before she could stop them. She felt heat rise to her cheeks as Marcus turned to her, surprise softening his features. Before he could respond, Noah bounded onto the stage, his wind turbine whirring to life, his enthusiasm infectious. When a loose blade wobbled, threatening to derail his presentation, Noah adjusted it with quick fingers, earning appreciative laughter from the audience. "And that's all," his mother, Marcus said softly, his voice warm with admiration. "Your resilience, your ability to adapt." The observation landed gently, crystallizing a truth Elena had felt but hadn't voiced. Liam and Noah were the best of both. Marcus's intellect and drive, creativity and perseverance. Neither could claim full credit for who their sons were becoming, just as neither could have raised them alone. The thought was comforting and bittersweet, a reminder of the partnership they were building and the years they could never reclaim. After the showcase, they joined the twins in the school cafeteria for the reception, where parents mingled over juice and cookies. Elena watched Marcus move through the crowd, his usual confidence tempered by genuine interest in the community his sons called home. He spoke with teachers about Liam's math progress, listened to a parent describe the robotics club, and asked questions without a trace of the arrogance she might have expected from a billionaire CEO. His ease in this modest setting, so far from his corporate world, stirred a quiet respect in her. Ms. Harper, Mrs. Callahan approached, her elderly eyes twinkling with curiosity. "You didn't tell me the boy's father was back in the picture. Such a charming man." "It's recent," Elena said, unsure how to summarize their complex journey. "The boys are getting to know him. He clearly adores them," Mrs. Callahan said, patting Elena's arm. "Second chances are rare, dear. Don't let pride block the path to happiness." The unsolicited advice caught Elena off guard, but before she could respond, Marcus returned with the twins, who were chattering about the praise their projects had earned. "Dad's taking us for ice cream to celebrate," Noah announced, bouncing on his toes. "You're coming too, right, Mom?" "Of course she is," Marcus said before Elena could answer. "This is a family celebration." Family. The word hung between them, loaded with meaning. It is not just co-parents sharing duties, but something deeper and more interconnected. At the ice cream parlor, as the twins debated flavors, chocolate for Noah, mint chip for Liam, Marcus drew Elena aside, his expression uncharacteristically nervous. "I have something to ask," he said, his voice low. "The boys mentioned wanting to see where I live. I thought maybe if you're comfortable this weekend, they could stay overnight at my place. With you," he added quickly. "There's plenty of room, their own space, and yours too." The invitation marked a shift beyond the neutral spaces of parks and museums where they'd built their co-parenting rhythm. Elena hesitated. "That feels like a big step, Marcus." "It is," he acknowledged. "But they're curious about my world, and I want them to feel they belong there, without being overwhelmed." He had a point. The twins started asking about Marcus's home, work, and the parts of his life they hadn't seen, normalizing their worlds. Elena's modest apartment and Marcus's privileged penthouse could help them integrate their dual heritage. "All right," she said cautiously, "but no extravagance, Marcus. No big gifts or experiences I can't match. I don't want them expecting things I can't provide." "I understand," he said, his relief evident. "Just a normal weekend, as normal as possible." The weekend at Marcus's penthouse revealed a side of him Elena hadn't anticipated. The space was luxurious but personal, with touches that showed he'd prepared for the boys long before their visit. Their room held bunk beds with rocket-themed bedding for Liam and a small workbench for Noah's projects. Elena's guest room was simple but thoughtful, with a vase of sunflowers, a nod to their past that stirred memories of their early days together. Elena said, "You've been planning this," as Marcus showed her around, the twins' excited shouts echoing from their room. "Since I met them," he admitted, "I wanted them to have a place here, to know they're a permanent part of my life, not just occasional visitors." His sincerity disarmed her, a reminder that this was a father building a home for his sons, not a CEO making a power play. That evening, as they shared a meal Marcus had cooked himself, another surprise, given his reliance on staff in their past, Elena felt the twins' ease in this new space. They were animated, but well-behaved, sensing the importance of the moment. Marcus engaged them without dominating, asking about their favorite museum exhibits and listening as they described their dreams. Liam's hope to visit a space observatory, Noah's plan to build a real robot. After the boys were asleep, exhausted from the day's excitement, Elena and Marcus sat on his balcony, the city lights a glittering backdrop. Marcus said, "Thank you for trusting me with this step," his voice soft. "They're happy here." "They are," Elena agreed. "You've done well by them these past months." "I'm trying," Marcus said, his expression reflective. "I keep thinking about what I missed. First words, first steps. I can't get those back." "No," Elena said softly, "but you're here now. That matters to them. And to you." "Does it matter to you?" he asked, his voice tentative. "That I'm here now?" Elena considered her answer, the night air sharpening her thoughts. "It matters that they have their father. You wanted them once you knew. The rest is complicated. I believed for 7 years you chose your legacy over us. That anger doesn't vanish overnight." "I understand," Marcus said, his gaze steady, "but I'm not that man anymore. These months with the boys and you have shown me what's real. I want to be the man you can trust, the one you might choose again." Elena looked out at the city, her heart stirring. The possibility of more than co-parenting felt closer, but not without risk. For now, she was content to let the threads of their new family weave together, one moment at a time. Elena Harper stood in the warm glow of Marcus Langston's penthouse kitchen, the air sweet with the scent of vanilla frosting and the laughter of her twins, Liam and Noah. The boys were sprawled across the counter, their hands sticky with blue and silver icing as they decorated a cake for their half-birthday, a tradition born from their newfound family rhythm. Liam meticulously piped star patterns, his brow furrowed in concentration, while Noah sculpted a lopsided rocket, his enthusiasm undeterred by the mess. Marcus, his sleeves rolled up and sweater speckled with frosting, guided their efforts with a patience that still surprised Elena. The scene was a tapestry of their evolving bond, woven from months of careful steps since that fateful day at Bella's bakery. "Mom, you're not helping," Liam called, waving her over with a grin. "Dad's stars are crooked." "I'm following your design," Marcus protested, his mock indignation sparking giggles from the twins. "My artistic skills are just too advanced for you," Noah said matter-of-factly. "You're a businessman, not an artist," smearing frosting on Marcus's arm. "But you're getting better." High praise. Marcus laughed, catching Elena's eye with a warmth that sent a flutter through her chest. She joined them, her hand steady as she adjusted Liam's piping bag, the four moving in a quiet harmony that felt new and timeless. This wasn't the family she'd envisioned 7 years ago, pregnant and alone, nor the one she'd resigned herself to after Beatrice Langston's cruel offer. It was something better, built on truth, forgiveness, and choices made with open eyes. The past months had transformed their lives. Marcus had become a steady presence, and his corporate empire was reshaped to prioritize the twins. He attended Liam's math competitions, cheered at Noah's robotics showcases, and rearranged board meetings to never miss a school event. His gifts remained thoughtful: astronomy books for Liam, circuit kits for Noah, never overshadowing Elena's role. Financial support came discreetly: scholarships for the boys' school, repairs to their apartment, and a reliable car for their safety. Elena accepted these with cautious gratitude, maintaining her independence while appreciating his intent to share the burden. Their co-parenting had evolved into a partnership, their disagreements handled privately, their decisions unified for the twins' sake. When Elena enrolled in Westlake's architectural program, Marcus's support was practical, picking up the boys on class days, coordinating with Mrs. Callahan for evenings. He never pushed, never assumed, letting her reclaim her dreams at her own pace. Tonight, as they celebrated the twins' half-birthday, Elena felt the weight of those choices, the possibility of a future that included not just the boys, but her and Marcus together. Later, after the cake was devoured and the twins tucked into their permanent room at Marcus's penthouse, Elena and Marcus stood on the balcony, the city lights a glittering canvas below. The winter air was crisp, but Marcus's presence beside her was warm, grounding. He handed her a mug of tea, a ritual that had become theirs,
a quiet space to reflect on their shared journey. "This feels right," Elena said, her voice soft as she gazed at the skyline. "Not just for them, but for us." "It does," Marcus agreed, his hand brushing hers. "We're building something real, Elena. A family, a future." She squeezed his hand, a silent affirmation. The pain of their past, Beatrice's lies, the 7 years of separation, hadn't vanished. But it no longer held them captive. They'd chosen to move forward, to weave a new story from the threads of their broken history. "I love you, Marcus," she said, the words simple but profound. A declaration rooted in the man he'd become, not the one she'd lost.
"I love you too," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I always have, even when I didn't understand it or thought you were gone forever." Their lips met in a kiss that carried the weight of their journey, promise, forgiveness, and a shared vision of what could be. Elena leaned into it, her heart unburdened by the anger that had once defined her. The cold contract Beatrice had offered had been replaced by something resilient, a bond forged through conscious choice rather than obligation. Inside, the remnants of their celebration lay scattered, frosting-smeared plates, a half-eaten cake, the twins' drawings of rockets and stars pinned to the fridge. It was a home, not just Marcus's penthouse or Elena's apartment, but a space where their worlds met. The boys thrived in this duality, finding comfort in Elena's familiar routines and excitement in Marcus's resources. Liam's analytical mind flourished with Marcus's logic puzzles, while Noah's curiosity found a match in his father's engineering projects. Elena watched this bond grow with joy and bittersweet awareness, knowing the years they'd lost could never be regained, but grateful for the present they were building. As they returned inside, Marcus paused at the boys' doorway, where Liam and Noah slept, their faces peaceful in the glow of a star-shaped nightlight. "They're everything," he said softly, his voice catching. "I'll never stop trying to make up for the time I missed." Elena said, "You don't have to make up for it," standing beside him. "You're here now, and that's what they need, what we all need." Marcus turned to her, his expression open. "And Beatrice? I've given her a choice. To be a grandmother who values them for who they are, or to stay out of our lives. I haven't heard from her since our confrontation." Elena nodded, the mention of Beatrice stirring a dull ache. She said whatever she chooses won't change this, gesturing to the sleeping boys. "We're their family now." The next morning, as Elena prepared breakfast in Marcus's sleek kitchen, a knock at the door startled her. Marcus frowned, not expecting visitors, and opened it to find Beatrice Langston standing there, her regal posture softened by an uncertainty Elena had never seen. In her hands was a small box, wrapped simply, her eyes hesitant as they met Marcus's. Beatrice said, I'd like her voice quieter than Elena remembered, if you'll allow it. Marcus glanced at Elena, seeking her input. She nodded slightly, her heart conflicted but open to the possibility of healing. "Come in," Marcus said, stepping aside. "They're just waking up." Beatrice entered, her usual confidence tempered as she took in the penthouse, now filled with traces of the twins, books, toys, a half-built model rocket on the counter. Liam and Noah emerged, rubbing sleep from their eyes, pausing when they saw the stranger. Marcus said, kneeling to their level, "This is my mother, your grandmother." "Grandmother?" Noah asked, tilting his head, while Liam studied her cautiously. Beatrice knelt awkwardly, offering the box. "I brought something for you," she said, "just a small gift." Noah took it eagerly, Liam more reserved, revealing 2 hand-carved wooden puzzles, one shaped like a star, the other a rocket. "They're beautiful," Elena said, her voice cautious but genuine. "I want to know you," Beatrice said to the boys, her voice trembling slightly. "If you'll let me." "Can you do puzzles?" Noah asked, already opening the box. "I can try," Beatrice said, a tentative smile breaking through. As the twins led her to the living room, Elena and Marcus exchanged glances, agreeing that this was a start, not a resolution. Beatrice's presence was a thread to be woven carefully, her past actions a shadow that would take time to fade. But for now, the boys' laughter filled the space, a sound that anchored Elena in the present. This family, forged through pain and choice, was stronger than the lies that had once torn it apart. As Elena watched Liam explain the star puzzle to Beatrice, Noah chiming in with rocket facts, she felt a quiet certainty. They were whole, not because of wealth or legacy, but because of love, forgiveness, and the courage to choose each other day after day.